When it comes to murder mysteries, there's an understanding, an expectation, a hope perhaps, an unstated agreement between creator and viewer, the ability to participate. Perhaps in a distant future, we'll be able to step within the world of fiction, but for now, mystery opens a window into fantasy. You gather clues alongside the detective. You form connections between clues. You become a detective yourself as you immerse yourself within that story. And just as you think you figured it out, you realize you were wrong the entire time, and that was actually a fishing line trick. Well, maybe the next murder will be different. But for this season, we have Undead Murder Farce, an anime airing this season, including famous figures such as Sherlock Holmes, Frankenstein, Jack the Ripper, Phantom of the Opera, and Carmilla. Wait, those are the wrong characters? What do you mean this isn't the new season of Lord Elmaloy? Well, I guess it's about these schmucks. The girl that doesn't have a body, the dude who's cosplaying Anthony Padilla, and the maid. Well, the maid's alright. This is a joke, a theatrical comedy, a farce, an undead murder farce. What do I or the show mean by a farce? This anime is clearly inspired by theatrical performances, particularly Japanese theatre. It's similar to a comedy and it doesn't mind leaning into it, with the change in background, the shift in angles, and the consistent focus on center stage. Added onto that is the feeling associated with mystery, and set in the European parts of the story in the Victorian era. A cross between these two told in easily the greatest of all art forms, anime. Still, with the Japanese theatre elements that are within the series, which is mostly set in Europe, ends up with a pretty unique atmosphere and tone. The art direction gives it a look that isn't outstanding, but the way each scene is framed and the angles explored themselves are eye-catching. From overhead shots that contain the entire cast to backgrounds that pound without concern for background cohesion. Yet, it manages to mesh all of that into the mystery, and use those setting points to enhance it even further. There's an approachability when it uses these aspects. You know what to not focus on. The clues are always center stage, the characters are always center stage. You'd think an anime such as this would be a lot more popular, so why isn't it? This is a mystery that feeds into perhaps an issue with viewers and presentation, with the show itself, and also with mystery and anime. Amongst mystery anime, perhaps there aren't as many as well known, nor as long standing as Detective Conan. It has a solid fan base, myself amongst them, but most of us have gotten into it young. It's presented as being for children, and at the same time it isn't something to be solved by children. Hell, I still only get lucky once every 300 episodes or so on a rewatch. But it has a lot of mysteries, and I mean a lot, from hundreds of murder mysteries, heists, the large overhanging mystery of the series, and figuring out who the black organization members are. Fans are given things to figure out constantly. They're all solvable, but it just doesn't feel fair. So, what do I mean by fairness? I don't mean having the answers given to us. What I mean is not having an indent in a frame automatically equal it being some kind of fishing line, or having a series of internal rules that are longer than my shopping list. Like seriously, you see this shit? But just because it doesn't feel fair doesn't mean that it isn't solvable. Well, I would consider it solvable once you're locked into the pattern of a mystery. You know just how to go about solving it. And with Detective Conan, you have a lot of that on hand. With almost 1,100 episodes, about as many chapters, an anime runtime of 27 years, a manga runtime of 29 years, over 600 murder cases, people who've stuck through have a good feeling for how things will go. So, the cases only get harder and harder with time, and the challenge continues. Yet, Conan is still only 7. But, we only talk about this guy being stuck in a time loop. Be free, my homie. When it came to Murder Farce, that was perhaps the very first thing I noticed in the very first case. Just how solvable it is, how the hints are given away, how intuitive they are. The tropes are apparent to us mystery fans. They're given center stage. Perhaps the primary reason it's so solvable is that it isn't a mystery at its core. It's an homage to theatre. Important clues take center stage. The extra information isn't given focus and happen on the peripheries. All the clues are shown to us, held up to the audience, piece by piece. Motivations are perhaps the easiest to glean, especially when we see the opening of the case start with the reason why. This all adds up to making it approachable. The mystery is right in front of our eyes, and yet, it hasn't taken off. I wondered why it wasn't being talked about. Sure, there are bigger anime airing this season and it doesn't look particularly great. Even us fans of the show have been pretty quiet about it. Until now, at least. And I couldn't really figure out why. So I thought about it. I thought about it some more, and I thought about it some more. Mostly because I wanted to make a video about it. But eventually it hit me. First I thought it was because it was pretending to be a mystery. Then I thought it was because it was pretending to be theatre. And then I realised it's because it's both. While Undead Murder Farce is a series that is very fun, it isn't good at portraying what it's really about. Both the tone and atmosphere of the series sit between worlds. It combines characters from other works that in all truth could just have been their own characters. Plus its marketing has been kinda dogshit. Maybe they believed that adding a series of names from literary characters would give it a draw from Fate fans. Sadly it only worked on one. Characters themselves are pretty fun. Toguro and Aya's chemistry pops, their jokes are witty, yet this wasn't shown well in any of the trailers I saw. They complement each other really well. and act as a distraction from the muddled atmosphere of the series. But at the same time, they also detract from the atmosphere every time it starts to sell. There really isn't much to be said about the maid. Hase something. She doesn't do much of anything. She has to be told to do the tiniest things, like carrying bags. Hopefully she'll get some agency eventually. Foreshadowing? Then come us anime fans. We're always a bored couple hours away from checking out the less hyped shows. A few hours at home with nothing to do and caught up. There's a fun name that pops up. There's a small foreshadowing of something interesting. And then we'll be hooked. It just so happens that this is a busy season. This anime hasn't been given a chance by a good chunk of us, and in all truth, does it even deserve that? With each season growing more and more competitive, the amount of anime thrown at us is huge, and so we can only give time to the ones we choose. Half of which will drop, and most of which we won't talk about 3 months after its conclusion. Undead Murder Fast might just end up being one of those, unless it can generate hype, hook more in, and dig its claws into the fanbase. Because while I don't think it's a great anime, I do think it's a good one. It's introduced an even background for mystery lovers. Our participation isn't just assumed, but encouraged. There isn't a jaded approach of not wanting us to solve it, nor is there the conceit of us being too dumb to solve it were it any harder. Undead Murder Fast is simply a good sport.